Hard to believe, but hybrid vehicles have actually been in the country for more than a decade now. And when they first started to arrive, people were like, is this a legitimate form of propulsion? Is this a novelty? But fast forward now to 2020 and everyone's talking about electrification. And people are not just talking about hybrids, but actually full electrics. So the question is the Philippines ready for full electrics or EVs? So I'm here right now at PGA Cars, which is known for taking care of the following brands: Audi, Bentley, Lamborghini, and Porsche. PGA Cars is saying it's not a question of if or when. They're actually saying this mantra, future now. So we're going to learn more about it today. I'm Maceda Aguila. This is Chatbox. All right, hello everyone. Once again, I'm here at PGA Cars on EDSA Green Hills. And with us today, we're very privileged to have with us Mr. Christopher Chan, Planning Director of PGA Cars. And we also have with us Mr. Carl Cunanan, an automotive journalist, veteran, and juror for various international awards. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for sharing your time with us today. And we're hoping to find, hoping to generate some very good discussion today. By the way, again, this segment is called Chatbox with me, Maceda Aguila. And today we're going to talk about everything electric. And so first off, as I said during my introduction, PGA Cars has this, do you call it your mantra, your motto, Future Now. So Chris, I start with you by asking, what is Future Now actually for PGA Cars and the brands that you represent, namely Audi, Bentley, Lamborghini, and Porsche?
Future Now, as you said, is not only a mantra, but basically how we move forward with everything. It's our statement for electric vehicles, because electric vehicles were usually an afterthought for a lot of people in the industry. They were thinking, okay, electric cars will be coming in maybe 3 years, 5 years from now. But what we're saying is that they're here. They're here now. The future is here now, and you can drive it today, and you can own it today.
Okay. Now, a lot of people, namely in the industry, have also been talking about how reluctant they are to bring in electrified vehicles, specifically electric vehicles, because they say the challenge is usually the lack of infrastructure. And when I say infrastructure, meaning charging infrastructure. So, what was the point when you guys decided to pull the trigger and say, okay, the e-tron and Taycan are here, and I think the market is ready for it?
We started off with that same problem as well. We were thinking, okay, charging infrastructure is not here yet, but talking more and more with our principals, we found out that 90% of charging basically happens at home. Given that very strong number, we talked to our customers, we did some initial surveys, and got very good feedback in terms of the demand for the EVs. So with that, we took the jump and went into the electric vehicle market head on.
All right. Carl, what are you seeing from your end as an automotive journalist? What's the scene like, or what are you seeing in terms of electrification, electrified vehicles? Is the Philippines really ready for it? Because I know, for instance, there's this mass market brand that pulled the trigger on it some time ago, and frankly speaking, I didn't see too much traction in terms of perhaps the number of units that we see on the road. What are you seeing? Do you have that same confidence that Chris you just mentioned?
Yes, completely, and several different reasons. Number one, you do not compare something like a Porsche or an Audi or a Bentley to a mass market brand. So understand, first of all, that they are completely different markets. They have completely different demands, okay? If you're looking to buy something on the lower scale, lower cost scale, you are looking at getting something that is more usable and whatever. Whereas if you're looking at buying a Audi e-tron GT or a Porsche Taycan, you're looking for an Audi experience or a Porsche experience. These are two completely different things, any more than you would say a 3-cylinder XYZ engine is comparable to a Porsche V8. They're completely different. Having said that, electrics are wonderful vehicles, and when you bring them in, if you're bringing in, let's say, we're using the example of the Audi e-tron GT, it takes all the best of the technology of the electrics, which allows balance, it allows space, proper space use, it allows better dynamics, and then you're putting it in that platform. That's a completely different market from the guy who wants to save the largest amount of money. The fact that he said, which I didn't realize those were the numbers, maybe they were internal, he didn't tell us, but 90%, that makes a big deal, okay? We drove the e-tron GT for a day in 5 hours of traffic, stop and go traffic. We ran it through a flood. We ran it faster than we probably should have, but we also ran it stop and go. And I had more than 60% power left when I got back here, and it's a very, very conservative estimate. So what do I think? Number one, I think if we're going by the 90% at home charging, we're about ready. The only thing that would disallow you from is taking trips, but that is being answered. For example, a few weeks ago we were at the leading malls of the Philippines, which already had their chargers. Okay, and if you get something like an e-tron GT, you get a charger for the house and a charger for the trunk, right? So I think more than ever, if you want to call that the future is now.
Well said. Well, I also mentioned in my introduction that hybrids have actually been in the Philippines for more than a decade now. I was actually surprised to learn that because a lot of people still have a lot of misconceptions about electrified vehicles. I mean, starting with the hybrids, they're not really too sure. There's a range issue and stuff like that. What are you seeing from? Well, you said the 90%. I'm assuming that the 90% also knows like what they're getting into. However, having said that, what sort of concerns or maybe worries do some of the people have about electric vehicles? I'll say it right now. Of course, one of them would be range, right? Range anxiety. What are you seeing from your end?
Okay, from our end, range anxiety is a concern for some, but not really a major one. As Carl said, it's a different market for people with, let's say, 1 cars, 2 cars versus people with 3 or 4 cars. So they would have an alternate for let's say longer journeys. With that said, the e-tron SUV, we've already tried to go long distances. We've already reached La Union with over 24% left in the charge. So that's over 300 kilometers, and it's not really concerning. And that wasn't even eco driving or anything. It was
normal.
Yeah, normal and
for Audi.
yeah, normal for Audi. Yeah. And yeah, so I wouldn't think it's such a big hurdle for most people, and it's part of the lifestyle. It's part of getting into an EV. You usually are more conscious about how you use your vehicle, how you use the energy inside the vehicle. Living a more sustainable lifestyle is part of how the transition to EVs are looking like.
Okay, very interesting, Chris. I learned that quite a number of your buyers, or the buyers for the e-tron and the Taycan, are actually first-time buyers into these brands. Were you surprised by that? And what do you think explains that these people are now actually going full electric right away?
It was surprising at first, but once we analyzed the data a bit more, it wasn't surprising at all, that because these cars are mainly Audis, they're Porsches. It's just a different power drive for them. So it's from gasoline to diesel to hybrid to electric. It's still an Audi. It's still a Porsche. It drives like a Porsche. Drives like an Audi.
It so does.
And it's the same experience that you'd get, but just from a different power plant. And at the same time, the curiosity for EVs is really there, and you really see this sustainability trend that it's really now the new luxury for a lot of people. And when they see brands like Audi and Porsche, they would want to know and see the cars that are being built as sustainable vehicles, zero emissions vehicles that are plying the roads today. So that's one of the main drivers really for not only new but even also old customers. Okay. So easy to shift.
Well, that's good to know. But let's backtrack a bit, Carl. What are the kind of misconceptions that you're hearing from people who are probably still on the fence about going full electric? And because I want these expressed now, so we can also, sort of correct these misconceptions.
Okay. Okay. First of all, let's look at electrification versus electric. When you say electrified, that means there is a component of electricity that drives the motion of the car. Okay. Now this can be a hybrid where you have both a gas or diesel or whatever actually, and an electric component, or they can be full electrics. There's a very big difference, and they're also in between there where you have a hybrid, which is a plug-in. Okay, and let's go by how they drive differently. The first one, let's go with the hybrid. The most popular hybrid in the world is the Toyota Prius. Okay, what people don't realize is that it is a non-issue entry into the electrification world because it makes no difference to you. Okay, other than it's a more pleasant drive and it's a more quiet drive. One of the most quiet drives I've ever had before was in a Toyota Prius. Now, honestly, it's an e-tron GT. That is the most luxurious. There's a whole discussion on that. But anyway, the point of it is we should be not looking at electrics as power. We should be looking as what they allow the car to do. And they allow the car to be much more dynamic, much more quiet, insanely quiet. There's much better delivery. You're talking about, if you wanted this in a car before, you would need a V12 for smoothness. You would need a turbocharged V8 for power. You would need a tiny little engine for economy. Now you just use the two electrics in the car, or one electric depending. So what are the misconceptions? I can't say range is a misconception because it is an issue for a lot of people. Now, what we are seeing globally are a couple things. One is, let's say you want to go electric with your family, and that's fine. And you do charge at home 90% of the time, that's fine. What we're seeing, there's a drop-off, oddly enough, with the younger people. The younger people actually want the electrics more, but if, let's say, you're leaving your house and you're going to live at school, wherever it is, unless that school is set up for it, you can't charge there overnight. Okay, so that's where, those are issues there. Having said that, they would rather be electric. My personal point was we bring a lot of cars home, and we test a lot of cars. And we were at a resort one time, and I was saying, why is it so quiet? My daughter and my son were asking, and I was saying, oh, that's because they don't allow anything with an engine here. It's all motors. And their answer was, okay, so why is the rest of the world not like that? And that's a good point. Okay, that's a good point, and that is what that generation wants. That generation, rightly or wrongly, probably rightly, blame the generations before for messing up the world, so we're supposed to be solving that. Electrics, to a point, solve that. There's a whole discussion as to are the electrics being fueled by properly green power plants? Let's say, are they coal-fired or not? That's a whole other question. We can't answer that. What we can answer is, what's it like for you in the car? In the car, electrics are a whole lot nicer. What are the issues? Okay, we just drove the e-tron GT in 5 hours of traffic. I saw a negligible drop, and I have documented that completely. So I drove it through floods that would go, I would say, at least 1 inch to 2 inches above the lower rim of the steel wheel, not the steel, but the metal wheel of the car. No issues whatsoever. I had no issues at all. We got swamped by buses going fast beside us, where we got completely covered by water. I saw no issues there. What would the issues be? Maintenance is actually easier because you have less moving parts, okay? So those are the misconceptions. People think electrics are all the same, but you would not compare a Kia to a Ferrari, right? You're not gonna compare a brand new Chinese car to a Porsche. So they're not the same. What it is electrics allow far more tunability and far more flexibility to these cars. They're actually a great answer. If anything, the main issue is, how are these going to affect me? And they're really not as much as you think they would.
Okay, okay. Well said. Now, it's interesting that you noted that electric cars have, far less moving parts, which means I would think that they would cost less to maintain, right? Now, Chris, if we're talking about ownership cost over the long term, like how would these EVs stack up against ICE powered cars?
As Carl said, it's less moving parts, so maintenance is definitely much easier. So it's actually you don't have oil going into these things. You don't have the brakes last forever pretty much because of the regeneration of the systems. So it's really easy. So, and it's much more cost effective to run these cars in the long run. and the batteries last good 8-10 years, and everything's modular and easily replaceable. So,
Okay, what's the PMS schedule like? I'm just curious.
it's every year still, but of course most of the first year and let's say the third year would be more on the inspections, checking on the coolant, minor things.
1 year or how many kilometers?
1 year or 10,000.
10,000. Okay. Okay. Not bad actually. Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
not at all.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, of course, there's a lot of good news also coming by way of policies and legislation that are sort of making things a little more conducive for the industry, like the VIDA law, which recently lapsed into law. So, as far as government support is concerned, are you guys happy at PGA Cars, or what do you think still needs to happen to get us to that possibly tipping point for more people to get into electrics?
I think we're in the right direction when it comes to the movement of the government with the EVIDA law. So there at least now there's a push on parking spaces, benefits for EV owners. But of course, we'd like to see more on the importation side of things, that they would help out in terms of the duties. But again, it's really more the infrastructure that they can really help out with, because from what we've seen in other countries, the infrastructure was really set up by the government or heavily subsidized by the government, from petrol stations to office buildings and schools and public parking areas. There would be government funded or government supported infrastructure to help make things easier, because of course, as we know, Philippines, not everybody would easily have readily available parking space or even parking space at that near their home. So it would be easier for the industry to move forward with full government support on these aspects.
Mm-hmm. All right. Okay. Fair enough. Now, Carl, you and I have been covering the beat for a while, and as I mentioned earlier, not all brands or importers or distributors, if you will, are as willing as PGA Cars is about bringing in electrified vehicles. What are you seeing? What's if there are concerns, if there are misgivings or whatnot? What do you think the tipping point? I mean, as far as manufacturers are concerned, brands are concerned, because again, not all of them are actually very willing to bring in full EVs.
Yeah. Well, it's extremely costly. It's extremely costly to do, and people don't understand that. Okay, for example, the commitment of PGA Cars right now is 330 million pesos. Okay,
And growing.
And what does that mean? If you make a decision to bring in a car, you're not talking about like the guy who goes down the road and brings in a car. Okay, you're talking about, before you even do that, you need to set up the structure for your training of your people, for the parts, for the tools needed to work on the parts, for all these things. There's a huge structure. Then you have changes in. It can be changes in where you can park the cars, where you can store the cars, where you can work on the cars. There's all these things. It's a huge amount of money. In addition to that, if there are any issues, you need to have, if you are a premium car maker, extra cars, basically. Because if one goes down, and this is a new technology, honestly, you need to have other. There's some car companies I know who said, no, we need to have another fleet just to handle issues here. Okay, so it's a big deal. You got to look at the numbers. They have to look at the numbers. It's a massive commitment, and this is where I need to make a comment about government support, because let's look at some examples. If the example I will give is Korea, Hyundai, and Kia, and so on. When they want to do an electric, what happens is they build the motors, they build the cars. They also, because they are a huge company, they also build the shopping malls. They build the highways. They build the houses. They build all of that. All of that can be electrified. So, and that's not government. That's private enterprise. Just like here, it's a private initiative. It's in Mega Mall because it's a private initiative. It's in here because it's a private initiative. Okay. I can't remember. I think it was New Zealand. I'm not sure. The reason electric cars work is because a entrepreneur set up a spine of electric charging stations that would be within 100 kilometers of anywhere. This does not help the brands, because what they are doing is they're buying all the used electric cars from Japan because they allow that. Okay, but those are initiatives of private enterprise more than they are government, in my opinion. Government is just ideally clearing the way to let the guys do their jobs.
So are you saying then that we are perhaps relying on what government will do when it should be
Do you really
private.
think you should rely on what government should do? Sorry, no,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
no, I understand them and I appreciate it completely. But we are in a situation, we are in an environment where we got to live through multiple different types of governments, and we still got to get the job done.
Yeah, yeah.
And so you got to do that. At one point, you couldn't register the cars because they had no
Yeah.
motor, so you had no engine.
Yeah, they had to
This
do
is
it on the.
and this is a technology. What's the technology of registering your car? A pencil, stencil. That was a technology that stopped going forward, right? So
Yeah.
we got to leapfrog that and get into these things. And these cars, they're great cars. He was talking about maintenance, and this is I didn't realize this. It makes sense if these are far more modular engines. Then if you got a problem with the motor, pop the motor out, put the motor back in. Okay, it's not like now. Okay, when we're talking about say the R8, or we're talking about a new Porsche of any kind. These cars are built in such a way that they handle insanely well, better than race cars of like 5 years ago. But to do that, you got to move all the weight around, and that means that if you want to service that car, you're going to have to pull things out, and that's all more expensive.
Yeah.
With these electric motors, everything can be. I mean, you're basically starting from a clean sheet. So from the ground up, there are advantages. You can make it more usable, user-friendly. You can make it more easy to work on, and that helps the brand because they spend less time, they do less training.
Yeah.
So what do I think? I think okay, I'm a big fan of electrics. Honestly, I mean, I love the sound of the
The
Porsche
sound, yeah.
or the right whatever.
Yeah.
But understand that the new buyers, and these are new buyers. The new buyers, he was correct. The buyers for these other cars are new to the brand, and they're new to the technology, and they're willing to take the chance. So,
Okay.
what do I think? I think government can get out of the way, and we should get our jobs done.
Okay, okay. Well said. But I'll go back to your point, and thank you for raising that. The 300 million investment of PGA Cars. I mean, it's nothing to sneeze at. But can you also add to what Carl already mentioned, like what the 300 million will go to actually, as far as you guys are concerned at PGA Cars, and how you're laying the groundwork for electrification?
So it is a sizable amount, and it keeps on growing as we go along. New models, new tooling, training, new facilities, and at the same time pushing forward in terms of charging points. So we're also doing our own groundwork, and of course not waiting for the apple to fall from the tree, and get all this support from the government. But we're really pushing it on that side. Also for the training of the people, as I mentioned, it's something new. It's not an engine that just changes from generation to generation with some minor tweaks left and right. It's an electric motor. It's a whole battery with multiple cells that they need to learn how to do. And then that's what we're really investing and training all our people for. So, and again, it's not only okay, we launch it, it's good, we sell it in Metro Manila, it's done. But it's considering, okay, how do I sell this car and have it serviced properly in Bacolod, in Cebu, in Davao. So it's preparing for all of that in the coming years as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we were talking earlier, PGA Cars is also talking to third parties, right? Where are you encouraging the setup of charging stations where people, I mean, in destinations, perhaps like hotels, hospitals, well, malls. We've seen how Carl said also earlier that SM has its own effort to set up EV charging stations. Like, what can people expect? Like what are you guys doing in this regard?
It's more, I would say, educational in terms of what we're doing when we're talking to third parties, because at the end of the day, I would liken it to, let's say, Wi-Fi. You're an establishment, you'd have something as basic as free Wi-Fi. It's a basic amenity that would really help draw people to your establishment and to your location. So, say having two restaurants side by side, one with free Wi-Fi and one without. Immediately you'd think, okay, I might have my coffee here and have my snack here because it has free Wi-Fi. Same goes with the charging stations. I would rather spend 2-3 hours here in this location because yeah, there's a charging station. I can just drop in, charge my car, do my groceries or watch a movie.
I never would have thought of likening it to Wi-Fi, but you're completely right.
Okay.
It's Wi-Fi is now expected, and these charging stations eventually will be expected. It's very right.
Yeah, yeah. Now we've heard a lot, of course, from Audi and Porsche, but PGA Cars also has Bentley and Lamborghini under its fold. Can you share with us some plans as far as electrification is concerned? Not just full electrics, but probably are you bringing in PHEVs or hybrids?
Okay, I think Bentley would be first to step in terms of plug-in hybrid electric vehicles. They've already launched the Bentayga hybrid and the Flying Spur hybrid worldwide, and we can expect our first few cars within the year as well, actually, for the plug-in hybrids for Bentley. And safe to say, let's say the Flying Spur hybrid can easily go 40-50 kilometers just on electric power alone. You can use it as a hybrid around the city, definitely, and you use the gasoline engine for longer drives. Lamborghini has in its plans as well hybridization, especially for their top-end hypercars, as we've seen already in some other competing brands. But definitely they're going into the market of hybridization as well, because again, it's a win-win. You don't only get more power, you get more you get power delivery at the right RPM, at the very, very low RPM for power as compared to more traditional engines, and it just adds to what Lamborghini is and to what Bentley is. It's effortless power for Bentley at the lower speeds, and Lamborghini for really high performance movement. But again, that's only one step, and they're moving towards full electrification. For Bentley, it's 2025. They're planning to release their first fully electric vehicle, and moving on until 2030, they'll be having their full lineup electrified already. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So this means that there will be a day that PGA Cars will be exclusively selling electric vehicles across your brands. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
And is that a world that you would love to be in, Pearl? Because I know you mentioned earlier that you love we love our NAs too. You know
Okay.
So what does Carl think about that?
What do I think? I think nothing's gonna match the sound and feel of a 911 on Nürburgring, or whatever. Having said that, let's make a couple points. One, the first Porsche ever made was electric. Okay, so people don't realize that. So this technology has been around for a while. We chose to go fuel for several reasons, and actually Porsche's answering that with their whole e-fuel thing, which is a whole different discussion. But the end result is there are going to be a whole lot of wonderful cars that we're still going to need fuel. And there are going to be areas of the world where you're still going to need fuel, and up in the sky you're still going to need fuel. So they have to answer that in one way. Do I want an electric world? I think it would be a great thing to have. I think we're not going to be there anytime soon because logistically it's almost impossible. I think for most of the world the easiest answer is the hybrids because you take advantage of the current old school infrastructure, but you also take advantage of the modern technologies. And let's make a quick point here. We are segmenting too much. Okay, just like this is, electrics can be Porsches and Bentleys, and they can also be whatever's. Okay, I shouldn't say that, but okay, it's really bad. But anyway, okay. But in the same way, hybrids can be the same way. A hybrid can be meant for efficiency, such as with the Toyota Prius, which is honestly a great vehicle, or they can be tuned for, and I love this, and this is great. Audi raced a hybrid electric, basically by having it all electric with an RS4 race engine just as a power generator. How cool is that? Okay, so you can skew them any way you want. You can skew them for insane amounts of performance. You can skew them for smoothness of drive. You can skew it any way, and not only that, you can skew it pretty much in car. I mean, we drove the e-tron GT up, and I had it on comfort mode, full aircon, full everything, not caring about power. I had no problem. Then I went dynamic, up hills, in the wet, and that's when you realized, yeah, Quattro. And you were right, because you said R8, and I was like, how can you compare this sedan to an R8? The R8 is basically neurally connected to your mind. Whatever you think it will do, you can feel every little thing. How can you make this sedan equivalent to the mythic R8? And the answer is they did. So there. What do I think about the future? I think we're going to have a combination. We're never going to get rid of fuel because we can't at the moment, not in the next 50 years. Understand that a lot of this is basically the answer to government regulation, which is an answer to a political need. Okay, so the politicians, as much as we love them, want to be in power. To do that, they have to say, okay, we're going to take, you can't fight against the environment, right? So we're green and all that. But the truth is we're going to have fuel, we're going to have diesel, we're going to have electrics. A lot of people think that fuel cells are the answer, and in many ways they are for certain things. I think it's going to be a combination. I don't think electrics are going to be, don't think of them electrics, just think of them as really, really nice, quiet cars.
True, true. And yeah, to your point, yeah, I'm also with you on that. That I don't think we're going to see full electrics like anytime soon for everyone. And as far as fuels go, actually Porsche is working on e-fuels as well, right? And these are sustainable, fossil-free fuels. So
yeah, they're racing them.
Yeah, they're racing them too. So yeah, maybe it's not a one pace fits all. So
No, not
if we're
at all.
talking about the Philippines, yes, we're happy to note that PGA Cars is taking a big leap of faith. Actually, it comes to that, right? On the other hand, no one's forcing us to transition right away, and perhaps everyone has his own pace and willingness at this point to go electric. So yeah, thank you very much for this interesting discussion, guys. Once again, thank you very much to Mr. Chris Chan of PGA Cars and my friend Carl Cunanan, a multi-hyphenate, if you will. And again, thank you very much for joining the very first edition of Chatbox. This is me, Cap Maceda Aguila. See you guys soon.